Hey guys, welcome to the In Theory video for the How to Analyze Drama series. This video will give you some tips and ways into analysing drama. We've got a lot to talk about, so let's get started. Whether you're writing an exam question or an essay, you'll be approaching your analysis in basically the same way, through 4 steps which lead to the final step of creating an argument. Let's begin at the beginning with the first and most important step. Read the play. Obvious, right? But a lot of people skimp on this part. Really read the play, or the extract that you've been assigned. And don't just skim read it. Read it multiple times, especially if this is the first time you're seeing it. Before you start the fancy pants analysis work, make sure you understand what is literally happening in the play and what is literally being said. Otherwise, the subtleties won't jump out at you. And here's a top tip. Jot down any initial things that jump out at you while reading. These things that interest you will probably stand out for a reason and might be your way in later. Right. Next, we need to think about the question you're trying to answer. Whether you're writing in an exam or doing coursework, you'll be answering a question. So we need to break that question down. What are the key terms within the question? Are you supposed to be looking for certain literary techniques or a particular theme? Whatever it is, understand what the question is actually asking you to do, as that's going to influence the analysis that you perform and how you bring drama into it. Let's look at an example. Cordelia's death is the shocking climax of cruelty in Shakespeare's exploration of evil in King Lear. To what extent do you agree with this view? The key terms are Cordelia's death. That's the part of the play the question wants you to analyse. Shocking climax of cruelty is another. This is a phrase that you must keep addressing in your answer. That is, you should include in every paragraph. Cordelia's death is/isn't a shocking climax of cruelty because... but obviously with a slightly different wording every time, because you're a literary genius. We can break this down further into 3 elements. You may want to look at whether or not Cordelia's death is in fact shocking, whether or not it is in fact a climax, and if it is it a climax of cruelty? Also, while the question wants you to look at Cordelia's death, you should also definitely draw in other relevant parts of the play as a whole. This will back up your argument and show that you really know what you're talking about. This may all sound pretty obvious, but many students lose marks for not sticking closely enough to the question or getting too sidetracked. It's a good idea to create a thesis statement, a super clear statement of what your argument is, to put at the beginning of each new paragraph, something like, Cordelia's death is a shocking climax of cruelty within the play because, and insert whatever point your paragraph focuses on here. This will remind you, and your examiner, every time you start a new paragraph that you are answering the question. Now, you might be saying, I thought this was a video about drama. This isn't a question about drama. What's going on? Remember, you can only support your view about Cordelia's death by proving it's based on the text, and you're always going to have to talk about form in some capacity to do this. Since King Lear is a play, this means we've got to analyse dramatic methods. So, what are dramatic methods exactly? Well, let me tell you in the next step of the video. Let's analyse a play. Well, you want to consider the visual effects of the play. These may include stage directions, props, setting, lighting, entrances, exits, as well as dramatic structure, where events occur in the play. And the effect of the play being spoken, not read, called phonetic elements, consonant and vowel sounds, assonance, repetition, imagery. Of course, if we're considering a playwright like Shakespeare or Marlowe, for example, we want to be looking at metre and rhyme, which can be found in our How to Analyse Shakespeare video series. In this example, you can talk about any aspect of the play, form or not, as long as you relate it to whether it helps to make or not make Cordelia's death a shocking climax of the play's cruelty. But to get a good mark, you also need to talk about key aspects of the play's form that you might not see in poetry or prose. When you consider a scene, look for anything in the list above and consider the effect it creates. If you were looking at the scene in King Lear where Cordelia dies, the stage directions in particular would probably stand out to you. Re-enter King Lear, with Cordelia dead in his arms. Now, this may seem like a simple stage direction, but you can get loads of analysis out of this. At first glance, we know that it's a pretty blatantly tragic image, a father carrying his dead child in his arms. It's certainly an image that evokes the effect of pathos and makes the audience feel sympathy. But what if I told you that the stage image of King Lear carrying Cordelia in his arms is a reference to another very famous image, the Pieta, the image of the Virgin Mary holding Christ's dead body in her arms. The Pieta was created to depict the idea of the martyr bringing redemption to mankind, and creating a communion between God and man. Without considering the stage directions, we would never have been able to draw this link, but now we can make an argument like, Cordelia's death is presented as the shocking climax of the cruelty within King Lear. In the stage direction, re-enter King Lear with Cordelia dead in his arms, Shakespeare juxtaposes the dramatic situation of the scene, in which Cordelia has died a senseless and cruel death, with an allusion to the Pieta, an image of Christ's sacrifice for mankind and thus a symbol of redemption achieved through sacrifice. This highlights that Cordelia's sacrifice is contrastingly empty. Her death has gained nothing and certainly did not bring redemption for the remaining characters. Therefore, Shakespeare presents Cordelia's death as the climax of the senseless cruelty within the play. Now for the last part. When you're constructing an argument, you must always remember the golden rule. All evidence must be used for something. Maybe this sounds a bit obvious, but try to always keep this in mind when writing your essays. You can't just point out different dramatic or linguistic features of the text, fun as this is. You have to relate them back to the argument that you're creating. In the example above, you're collecting evidence to prove your theory, whether Cordelia's death is or isn't the shocking climax of the play's cruelty. Spotting the reference to the Pieta alone would be impressive, but useless. It's no use saying line X is a metaphor. You must say line X is a metaphor which implies Y and thus supports my theory of Z. Look at the analysis you've done and combine the very best bits to support your argument. You are always, always, always answering a question. Your evidence is only there to support a hypothesis. Get it? Good. And there we go. So let's wrap it up in a good old conclusion. Here's my advice. 1. Read the play and work out what it's about. 2. Carefully think about the question you're trying to answer. 3. Analyze by interrogating every aspect of the play, no matter how unimportant each seems. 4. Pick out the best of the analysis that seems to fit together and construct an argument. Once you've done all that, all you have to do is actually write the essay and impress the socks off your teacher. If you still feel a bit unsure, don't fret. Head on over to my next video where I'll show you all of that in practice. See you there!